Yes, you guys, how you all doing? I'm Nini FC, this is Beeline TV, and for today's video, I'm going to be going through and breaking down our fixture list for next season. Now, yes, you did hear that right, it was released earlier today, and it's looking like next season is going to be very interesting. But before I get into anything, today's video was brought to you by the OneFootball app. And if you guys do download the OneFootball app, you'll be able to see the fixture list for yourself if you get it in the link in the description below. Thank you to everyone that helped support me by downloading the app. Now, wasting no more time, getting straight into the video. Now for today's video, I'm going to be formatting this video by breaking it down month by month. And let's start with the first month. Our first opponents for August will be Manchester United. Now, immediately, I can tell that all of us have the flashbacks from the 2004-2005 season where Jose Mourinho first took over. I remember that game because I was there. Ade Gudjonsen scoring the only goal of that game. And from then on, you could just see the dominance in our performance. Now, against Man United, I feel like it's going to be pretty interesting to play against them. I feel like there have been a few similarities between us and them. But I do think, in a sense, to really bring back those good vibe factors and to really make the fans feel confident, maybe it does make sense to come up against a very strong opposition. If we win that game, or if we play very well, that could set the tone for the rest of our season. And yeah, I think Manchester United is going to be a decent game. And after that, you've got a Leicester City team. A Leicester City team for me, which are going to be much better. I think that they really invested quite wisely. I like their business model. I think what they're doing is really well. And I'll tell you guys, Leicester are my second favourite team in the Premier League. And it's going to be a test for us if you consider the fact that we might have a young team, and it'll be a great contest to compare the quality of some of our young players against Leicester's. After that, Norwich City, that's the easy game we need. Norwich City, of course, getting promoted. You'd expect us to beat them and get all the points. And after that, Sheffield United again. So the month is quite difficult in that sense. Two fairly difficult games at the start. And after that, two fairly easy ones. So it's going to be really interesting to see how we do in August. Because as I said, I really feel like it's going to set the tone for the rest of our season. Now, moving on to September. First opponents against Wolves as well. And then honestly, the start of next season is going to be serious. It's going to be serious. And I know what a lot of us are already thinking. Nini, I can see we've got Wolves, Liverpool and Brighton right after August. Wolves and Liverpool, two tricky opponents. And, you get the sense that if we don't start the season well, we could be at quite a massive disadvantage purely based on the quality of the opposition teams we're coming up against so early during the season. Wolves, we did decent against them this season, but they're another team that will be much more improved. Of course, their development under Nuno is really going to help them as well. And an away game against Wolves, where we know that against the top teams, their record has been incredible. It's looking hard. And to have Liverpool following that as well. Now, for me, I'd rather play Liverpool at home compared to at Anfield. We could have a slight disadvantage there from the home crowd. It's going to be another difficult game, but let's hope that momentum's carrying us forward from the previous month. We know that with the players we have, the club we are, they're always up for the big games against the big clubs, so you never know what's going to happen. And then following that, Brighton, another easy game to hopefully, wrap up the month and take us forward into October. Now already, looking at October, you can see that that's going to be the breather month for us. Southampton, Newcastle and Burnley, teams that have traditionally been in the bottom half of the table, and hopefully they're going to continue to be there from next season. I think Southampton away, we've had a decent record against them, so it wouldn't surprise me that we did get the points against them. Newcastle, they've always given us a pretty hard game, I have to say. I feel as if there seems to be this culture at Newcastle where they just up the ante whenever they're playing against us. Against Newcastle, if you're not on point, anything can happen. We've seen that time and time again. Burnley straight after that away. Hey, I'll take Burnley away. I'm happy with that. I think with Burnley, I think they're a team on the decline. I think they could get relegated next season. They haven't really improved. They're not really the club that can attract the players to improve them as well. And I think the way they're set up tactically is quite dated in that sense, because teams know how Burnley are going to play, which makes it easier to stop them and break them down. Now, moving on to October, we start the month with an away game against Watford. Now, Watford, I don't mind going to that stadium. I don't live too far from there. Watford's always going to be a decent team. And then following that is another London game against Crystal Palace. Now, this Crystal Palace team we play against could be very interesting next season. Talks that possibly Wilfried Zaha and Bissaka as well, potentially leaving them. And of course, if they miss out on two players with that immense quality, that's really going to weaken what they do. And it'll be interesting to see how Crystal Palace are going to do next season. Because for me, if Zaha isn't going to be there, I don't see Palace surviving. And potentially in November, we could be playing against a Crystal Palace team who's really lacking a lot of confidence, hopefully making it easier for us to get the win. And then, after two fairly winnable games, the big game away against Man City. This is going to be very different now because it looks like we won't be having Sarri with us for next season when we come up against Man City. It's looking like Frank Lampard is going to be that guy. And this will be a major test for Lampard. And for me, Lampard has already shown that he does have that tactical acumen to produce something when it matters. I mean, already with this Derby team, we saw how he set up against us and Manchester United as well, and they played incredibly well. Derby, for me, outplayed us and Man United, and that just really gives you the confidence that Lampard and Morris, they know what to do, they have that experience, they are good tactically, and who knows what surprises they could spring for us against Man City. Following that, another London game. 3 London games in that month. Hey, I don't mind. If I go to the games, it's easier to get there. I'm always going to prefer London teams compared to any other club because it's just easier to get there. Against West Ham at home, we tend to beat them at home. We tend to do that. So hopefully against Man City, we're going to be carrying the confidence from that performance into that game against West Ham. And I don't know, November for me could be a potentially interesting month. And now getting into December, and normally around this time, the Christmas period, we tend to struggle. I do think for next season, things could be very different. Now we have to consider Ruben, Hudson-Odoi and Reece are all out. Now by the time they return back to the team, it's going to be around October time, but we need to think about them reaching full fitness because all 3 of these guys won't be having a pre-season. So it's going to take them at least maybe another month to fully acclimatize and get fully up to speed. And this is where, and December's the month where I feel much more confident compared to other periods. Yeah, as I said, it's the start of the Christmas period, but this time it's going to be like we have 3 new signings coming back, 3 new signings that should be fully fit by that time. And traditionally around this time, we tend to suffer due to fatigue. We tend to suffer because we get tired. It's happened time and time again. So if you've got the introduction of Reece, Hudson-Odoi and Ruben, that's going to benefit the team exponentially. That's going to improve us exponentially. And hopefully with them just coming back fully fit, it's going to give us that impetus that month to really have more success and be able to tackle the Christmas period even more. Of course, we can see against Aston Villa, that'd be an interesting team to come up against. But Aston Villa, who knows how they're going to do next season. Defensively, they're quite solid, they're quite good. So they could have a decent season. December does get crazy. In that month, 6 games already. Villa, Everton, Bournemouth, Tottenham, Southampton and Arsenal. It's going to be very difficult, but I think we can do it. I feel much more optimistic now that we've got these guys coming back. We're just waiting for them to get fully fit. And I think that this December should be a very good month in my personal opinion. Now moving on to the start of the new year, January 2020, Brighton's the first game away. Brighton, for me, I feel like there'll be another team that will struggle for next season. I don't think Brighton are the type of team that get enough goals. And that's what really costs you in the Premier League. If you struggle to get goals, it's not looking too good for you. Following that, I'm confident with that. Newcastle away, and we tend to play them away in January. It happens quite a lot. It's difficult. At St. James Park, I just don't understand why we can't play with the same intensity and quality. It's always been quite 50-50 in that sense. And following the game against Newcastle, it ends the month with a home game against Arsenal. And I prefer to play Arsenal at home compared to playing them away. I feel like we tend to get more victories when we play at home. And around this time, Arsenal tend to be another team that struggled during this period because I feel like the quality of the players isn't as high. I feel like they suffer with fatigue as well. and they don't have many players that are suitable to, really grueling sessions of football. So against Arsenal end of the month, it could be very positive for us. Moving on to Feb, away game against Leicester on the 1st. Leicester City, I feel like they could be the dark horses of the Premier League season. Last season they impressed me. I like how they utilise the flanks. I like how they're trying to model the club as well. Like I told you guys earlier, they do a lot of things the right way, and they clearly have a football strategy, but it's going to be similar to the first month in August, because after that we've got Manchester United straight after, a home game against them. Home games against Man United, and I think against most big teams we tend to get the points. Man United, I feel, will struggle next season unless they really blow it out the park in the transfer window, but it's not looking likely. I mean, when they're talking about guys like Harry Maguire as if he's going to exponentially improve their defense, then it's not looking too good for them. Following that, Tottenham and then Bournemouth. February is going to be a very difficult month. Now, Bournemouth are a team, they're quite 50-50. On their day, I feel like Bournemouth can give a game to anyone. But it's that consistency, and that lack of consistency comes from the qualities of the individual players. There's only so much that Eddie Howe can do, but I do think that the guy's a top manager, to be honest. And Tottenham as well. Tottenham, they're planning on spending big. They do need to. They have aspirations of becoming a big club, but to do that, you need to spend the money. And who knows how Tottenham's summer is going to be, but if they sign the right players, and if Pochettino does decide to stay, they could be a very difficult team to play against for next season. Now, moving on to March, first game of the month will be against Everton at home. Everton really progressed quite well during the second half of the season. I feel as if once some of their key players got back to fitness, the development of a lot of these players as well, I thought Kurt Zuma was outstanding. Thank God we're going to be having him back for the squad for next season. He's a fantastic defender. But Everton have money, they've got ambition, they've got decent players. I feel like their mid-block tactics are some of the best in the league, and they're always going to be a difficult game. Now Everton, if they have a successful transfer window, could be one of the dark horses for next season. For me, I do think that Leicester and Everton will be those two clubs that will be. Richarlison, I expect to see more from him for next season. He still hasn't really made a position his own right now. Is he really a striker or an inside forward or a winger? He's got that versatility. I think that Richarlison could be developed to play up front, and we know that we've had lots of links with the player, with his agents and his ties with us as well. He's always going to be a player on all of our shortlists, and it'll be really interesting to see just how Richarlison develops for next season. Now moving on to April, and finally an easy month. West Ham away. Quite difficult, but knowing West Ham, normally around the latter half of the season, once they've secured a mid-table finish, their ambition does tend to go. With West Ham, they don't have a football strategy. That's what always lets them down. They're able to attract some decent players. I mean, being a London club, naturally it's going to make it easier to sign decent players. But they don't have that love or that affinity for West Ham. They don't want to stay there. They signed to West Ham to progress their careers, and that's what really holds them back. And because of that, around this time of the season, I'm expecting West Ham to be fairly average, not really caring too much. And I think that this will be 3 points. After that, Watford, Palace and Sheffield United. Tons of London games of 1 month. Watford have been quite, but when you do assess April, you like to think that we do have the advantage. It is going to be an easy month for us to potentially get quite a few points, and who knows with the season I expect us to have for next season. Months like April are going to be so crucial for us because we'll have aspirations of trying to get into the Champions League for next season, and judging by how we ended last season, I don't see it being too different for next season. When you assess the potential quality of the squad we'll have for next season, it's not going to be too dissimilar from clubs like Man United, Arsenal, etc, etc. So I expect a place for a top 4 finish to be very tight again. And with April being quite an easy month for us, this could be the key month for us to really separate us from the rest of the pack and potentially get a top 4 finish. And to end things with the final month of the season, We start that with a home game against Norwich City. You're expecting us to beat them. It's going to be interesting to do research into some of these newly promoted teams. Norwich, I don't really understand how they play or what they're about. I know that they have some talented young English players. Max Aarons, I think they have another winger as well. So they could be interesting to see how they play next season. Following that, Liverpool away, and something just tells you that Liverpool will most likely be a title challenger for next season. They're going to invest money this summer as well. Us versus Liverpool right at the end of May. It feels like it's destiny. It feels like this is going to be a massive game, a key game. Could this potentially be the game where we need to win it to secure a top 4 finish, or could it be the game where Liverpool need to get the 3 points to win the title for the season? Hey, we'll find out come May. And to end the season with a home game, which is always the best way to end the season, that's going to be against Wolves, and hopefully by then it is going to be a nothing game where we can relax, we can reflect on how the season went, and look forward to the future. But anyway, you guys, that was me breaking down the fixture list for next season. In the comments section below, give me your thoughts and opinions. Do you see next season being a successful one, or do you think that it's going to be a disastrous one? I really want to hear your opinions. You guys, I'm going to keep it moving. Thank you for watching. I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Lions TV. Signing out.